So do you have a favorite piece?
Is like usually whatever piece I'm working on is my favorite piece. It's kind of like when you like fall in love, you're this is the best. This is the, but like looking back, I my life has changed pretty dramatically in the last year.
Oh, wow. Has that influenced your art?
Tagline for my Art by Adelaide business has always been I am art. And when you ask me if my art shifted since I've moved out here, I think about it, and I haven't really created, I haven't been as prolific as I had hoped. However, I've gone through a lot of deep personal changes, and the way in which I'm delivering or teaching or even initiating, starting a painting is feeling a lot more developed.
Does the art mature you as well?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. And the process in itself is very fulfilling, and it is something that does mature me as a person and as a human, as a woman, because while people call it patience, but it's not even patient because I'm being involved. I'm not waiting for it to finish. I'm being involved in the process. And it's like, it is a meditation. So if I'm working on one pattern for 3 days, during that pattern, I may listen to audiobooks, I may listen to music, I may listen to the sounds of nature, and there's all sorts of insights I'm getting that's happening like a meditation where it's like one thought comes and it goes, and the other one comes and it goes, and instead of like more fluid. So through like dedicating myself to like finishing each layer of the painting or each chapter of the painting, I am maturing through that process and getting to like that becomes like a symbol of everything that happened during that time. And so finishing a painting and writing about it is actually one of the most like insightful moments, because I can kind of take all of what I gained during the process and symbolically put it into words and reflect on how much I've grown through it. So yeah, I love that question, and I definitely feel like if I just like I don't know, had a stamp for the painting and called it done, I would lose so much of what I gained through creating it. Finishing it is not the most satisfying part anymore. It's a very special teacher to me, that process.
So that's interesting that you write about the art as a reflection. So what kind of stuff would you write about your art?
And I can't really like answer your question without going into like specific pieces, because each piece has a story. So I can't really just say like, when I write about my paintings, it's this. Sometimes it's a poem, sometimes it's an explanation, sometimes it's like a metaphor. So my writing also comes out very different depending on the painting. If you were to look chronologically at my art, you would even get sort of an autobiography from it. Mm. My Art by Adelaide logo, I actually have stickers I can show you, or I'll send you the images, but my Art by Adelaide logo is actually a triangle here. But the other logo, which I've created recently, is the Womb Wisdom logo, and that's the triangle here. And so these are like two different businesses that I have, or offerings, I like to call them, however you want to look at it. So yeah, the downward facing triangle at the second chakra is for the Womb Wisdom offering, which relates to me teaching belly dance and kind of bringing back the ritual of belly dancing and how that ties in into our womb wisdom, our gut instincts, our abilities to like feel through our innate understanding, as well as all of the belly dance history, which includes a rite of passage for young women when they got their first period. It prepares the body for birth. It helps the body repair after birth. And so, you know, we've talked a lot about the art, but then the womb wisdom logo is like this whole other side of what I'm equally passionate about. And so now I have logos for the both, and they literally reflect each other. So one's here and one's here, and that came from a dance move that I've done in which I go back and forth between the mudras. And so it's all like working in that same like thread of inspiration, but sometimes even I don't understand how things connect until later down the road. And so the painting I recently created is symbolically like and visually connecting those two businesses that now my artwork is reflecting my womb. I always, when I spell it, I write woman instead of woman. Yeah. So it's reflecting the woman's work, and so they're starting to kind of melt into each other, and it helps me feel less scattered as an artist, and a little more like there's a thread that's weaving through the different art forms.
No, that's awesome. I mean, especially along the theme of maturing as an artist, it sounds like a big part of that maturing is integrating yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Most definitely.
Right. Are there any pieces of art that represented a vulnerability that wasn't resolved with the art?
Yes, there's actually one piece called Strength and Vulnerability that wasn't necessarily a piece to resolve anything, but more to share the vulnerability of the moment that I was having, which is healing in itself. I have recreated the piece I was just referring to called Piece of Heart. I had another piece that was similar to it that I created a long time ago, or not that long ago, but a few years ago. And I really liked the geometry of it, but I felt like it was missing the center point, which is the heart. And so that one I recreated, and that'll be another one to let viewers see, because you can really see the similarities. And I also am working on like the Femme Art series, which has some uterus art that's very healing for myself, and I think for other women that I've done a few renditions of. One has hummingbirds, one has snakes shedding, which is more about our menstruation process. Like, so some artists have like practiced and trained by sketching the figure 100 times before they do a painting. I never did that. I just did the painting. So now that I'm revisiting certain concepts, I feel like I am doing this long road towards like working on my studies, like I've done snakes enough times now that the snakes are becoming more I don't even want to say realistic, but they're becoming more refined and like more shaded, or the scales or the face. So there are things that I like to geek out on, and it's not like I haven't worked through that in my life, but there are also things that I, like you said, maybe haven't worked through that are coming up again. So it's kind of a mixture of like emotional and technical.
So do you have a favorite piece?
Like usually whatever piece I'm working on is my favorite piece. It's kind of like when you like fall in love, you're like, this is the best. This is the, but like looking back, looking at my more recent pieces, I'm pretty in love with one called Insight Blossoming. I really enjoy how it stands out. It was one of the pieces that I marked the the price up really high, like double what I normally charge, because I didn't really care if it didn't sell. Like, and I'm literally like, I could use the money, but I really like it. And it's really empowering to like be an artist and to be like, I want to enjoy my own art, which doesn't always happen because I wanted to, make a living off my art. But every now and then there's a couple pieces that I was like, I could enjoy a few more months with this one, and I can feel like a little more of an affinity towards it.
Hmm. So when you said that the new side of your art that's focused on second chakra, and you said that you're actually focusing specifically on the uterus, is there something that happened for you in your life that's driving that focus?
So that's kind of a loaded question, as you could imagine. Okay, so like almost a decade ago, over a decade ago, no, about a decade ago, I did my first like ayahuasca ceremony in Peru, and had a really profound experience centered around my uterus, and I had an IUD embedded in it, which I did not know, and I hadn't bled. I hadn't bled for over a year, and really kind of lost track of my own like cycles. In fact, I didn't ever lose track of it. I never really, as an adult, I never really had it because I was put on birth control pills as soon as I had sex for the first time. So when I was in ceremony, I started bleeding, and like my uterus was trying to get rid of this object, and turns out it was embedded, and they almost had to do surgery. And I was like, no, don't do surgery. I'm going to come back in a few months and we're going to get it out without having to like cut into my belly, which would be really dramatic, especially as a full-time belly dancer and all the things. Right. So I did my first painting that was with this symbol here at the second chakra. At that time in my life, I think it was like 2012, and it's called Look Within, and that's when I really embarked on this journey. I did not know that this was going to be a bigger part of my life. It was just, a chapter at that point. And so it's that healing symbol, and I have the ovaries with like flowers growing from them, and I'll show you the art piece, but it's that symbol that has evolved into what I'm sharing now. And so that was like the initiation of this process, and it was also the initiation of me. So I went back to the doctor, and I was like, okay, we're gonna get it out this time. And he had to like really pull it out, like rip it out of my uterus, because it was but I just like breathed, and I just like imagined like orgasmic, and like I imagined like this blissful state, and like even the doctor was like, you're gonna do fine when you give birth, because I had to like completely like surpass the desire to like hold on to pain and to not want to release it. And so I kind of vowed to myself at that point, like I wasn't gonna do any type of alterations of my hormones or put anything else in my body. And that was again like a decade ago. And so it's such a slow process, I think, but it's become, that process like has become like a part of work that's becoming very profound for me now. And I have women who want me to like make a moon calendar so that they can track their cycles with the moon. And so I felt like, this last year, like I said, I've been developing my artistic next steps is more about like me really refining and going back and really seeing my story in this path. And so, and kind of connecting the dots. So that painting called Look Within has now, like we talked about before, been redone in like very different ways. And then more recently, I've been wanting to get more into the anatomy of the uterus and our internal bodies. And so I started to draw things that were a little more specific as opposed to just like a triangle or a mudra. But it's definitely relates to my healing process. And beyond like my healing process, it just feels like our world is like unbalanced right now. And so I'm using like my process as a like way to relate, but I'm mostly drawn to like continuing my like women's work because I feel like we need to like create, or we don't need to, but it would be beneficial to this like world if we males and females could harmonize these parts and really acknowledge like the greater suffering of like all the feminine aspects of our world, including men who feel ashamed to have sensations and emotions. It's like those are also feminine aspects like worth giving like love and attention to. So, and then being a woman and being who I am, it just felt like most natural thing for me to be doing with my like gifts. So that's that journey. And then of course I grew up belly dancing and I learned that from my mother. So like we've been talking about, it's like it's like I've been doing this since I was born. It's just now that I'm like doing it more consciously and like not being as afraid to step up in my leadership and in my voice.
So there's a strong theme of inspiration that's coming through with the art towards the community of women.
Yeah, I'm pretty lit up about it.
We talked mostly about your paintings, a little bit about the belly dancing, and I'm curious, when you do the belly dancing, how much is that choreographed and how much is improvised?
So most of what I do is improvised, but I usually will only choreograph if I'm working with other entertainers and we need to be on the same exact count. Then I'll choreograph. But my sister and I, we kind of speak a whole other language, and we can like improv and with certain like cues, like just like little like, okay, this means something. We both know, now we're turning. So it's, again, that's a special and unique relationship where we're kind of choreographing on the spot and we're giving visual cues to each other. But I love improvising.
So do you have a preference between dancing or painting?
I can't say I could live with one and without the other. If I don't paint, I feel crazy. If I don't dance, I feel crazy. I'm a little crazy, which is what makes me an artist. But if I have both of those, then I'm a manageable amount of crazy. And don't make me pick favorites from my children.
No, that's perfect. I love it. So thank you for sharing your art with me. That was awesome. Very, very enlightening. And I'd love to see how your personal art has really evolved into including all the community and really, hold on. I'm like, again, now it's funny. I kind of rehearse something in my mind and then now it's like causing me to stumble.
See, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, long story short, I love your art. It's beautiful. And thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have different ways to share what I do. And it's lovely to connect with you again. Like, I'm lucky if my cell phone works. I mean, this is a miracle that we got through this interview without it stopping. I hope